I sat alone in the sterile chemotherapy room, watching the clear liquid drip into my veins. My phone screen remained stubbornly dark. No messages, no calls. The conversation from yesterday still echoed in my mind. "Mom, we're really swamped right now. We can't arrange to take you to chemo tomorrow," Olivia had said, her voice clipped with that familiar tone of impatience. "Can't you just take an Uber or something?" Minutes after that call ended, a text message arrived. "By the way, Daniel and I have our anniversary dinner this weekend. Could you watch the kids Friday through Sunday? Emma has ballet on Saturday at 10, and Noah has soccer at 2. The disconnect between these two messages was so profound. It would have been comical if it wasn't my life. 7 years of weekends dedicated to my grandchildren, and now when I needed help the most, I was told they were too busy. "Ms. Wilson, all done for today." The nurse's gentle voice pulled me back to reality. "Do you have someone picking you up?" I forced a smile. "Just calling a taxi." She frowned slightly. "Are you sure the side effects can hit pretty quickly after this particular treatment?" "I'm sure," I replied, gathering my things. "I've been managing just fine on my own." But the truth was, I wasn't fine. Not at all. My name is Margaret Wilson. At 63, I'd spent 35 years teaching third graders before retiring. 3 years ago, my husband Richard died in a car accident a decade earlier, leaving me to navigate life's later chapters alone. But I was never truly alone. I had my daughter Olivia, her husband Daniel, and my two beautiful grandchildren, Emma and Noah. Or so I thought. When Emma was born 10 years ago, Olivia struggled to balance her medical residency with new motherhood. I stepped in without hesitation. "Let me help," I offered. "I can take her on weekends. You and Daniel focus on your careers." That temporary arrangement became permanent. When Noah arrived 3 years later, my weekend responsibilities doubled. I never complained. These children were the light of my life, especially after losing Richard. Their laughter filled the void in my home. Their small hands in mine gave me purpose. Every Friday at 5 p.m., Olivia or Daniel would drop the kids at my modest Boston apartment. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., they'd collect them, often looking refreshed from their adult time, as they called it. I rearranged my life around this schedule. I declined invitations to retreats with fellow retired teachers. I turned down a cruise with my friend Patricia. I even passed on a part-time position at a local library because the hours included Saturday mornings. My world contracted to accommodate theirs. When Emma started ballet, I learned to perfect ballet buns. When Noah became obsessed with dinosaurs, I became an amateur paleontologist. I attended parent-teacher conferences when Olivia and Daniel couldn't fit them in. I nursed fevers, kissed scraped knees, and celebrated lost teeth. I was more than a grandmother. I was a second mother. The diagnosis came 3 months ago. A routine mammogram, a concerned radiologist, a biopsy, stage 2 breast cancer. Treatable but aggressive. The treatment planned surgery followed by chemotherapy, then radiation. My world tilted on its axis. When I called Olivia, her initial response seemed appropriate. "Oh, Mom," she gasped. "That's terrible. What can we do?" Daniel echoed her sentiment. "Margaret, we're here for you, whatever you need." Those promises evaporated like morning dew under a harsh sun. The first weekend after my diagnosis, they still brought the children. "We thought the distraction would be good for you," Olivia explained, ignoring the fact that I just received life-altering news and might need time to process it. The weekend after my surgery, they called last minute. "Mom, I know you just had surgery, but we have this work event. The kids have been looking forward to seeing you." I couldn't say no to the children. So there I was, 6 days post-mastectomy, making pancakes for Noah and helping Emma with her science project, wincing every time I lifted my arm. When chemotherapy began, the side effects hit me hard. Nausea that wouldn't relent, fatigue that made standing at the stove feel like climbing Everest, hair that came away in clumps on my pillow. "Maybe you should reconsider the kids this weekend," I suggested timidly during one particularly rough week. Mom, we've got this massive case going to trial, Daniel said, and Olivia's covering for Dr. Matthews. There's literally no one else. What about your parents? I asked, referring to Daniel's mother and father, who lived just 30 minutes from them. They're not good with the kids for that long, came his dismissive reply. You know how Emma gets with them. So I pushed through. I set up movies when I couldn't play. I ordered pizza when I couldn't cook. I dozed on the couch while they built forts around me, all while my body was at war with itself. The breaking point came when my car broke down. The timing belt snapped and repairs would take weeks. My next chemotherapy appointment loomed, and for the first time I directly asked for help. Olivia, I can't drive myself to treatment. Could you or Daniel take me? It's at 10 a.m. on Thursday. The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably. Thursday morning is impossible, Mom. I have patients back to back, and Daniel's prepping for depositions. I could take a taxi, but the oncologist strongly advised against going alone. The new medication might make me too weak to get home. Another pause. Have you asked Patricia or someone from your old school? I felt something crack inside me. Patricia is in Arizona visiting her daughter, and I haven't kept in touch with many colleagues since retirement. I took a breath. Olivia, I need help just this once. I'm sorry, Mom. We're just too busy right now. Maybe reschedule for when we have more flexibility. Reschedule cancer treatment to accommodate their schedules. The absurdity of it struck me like a physical blow. That same night, I had to cancel a follow-up appointment with my surgeon because Noah came down with a fever, and neither Olivia nor Daniel could leave work early to collect him from school. Mrs. Wilson, Dr. Rachel Chen, my oncologist, said during my next appointment, which I'd struggled to reach via 3 connecting buses, you need to prioritize your recovery. Your immune system is compromised. Childcare is not advisable during this phase of treatment. I nodded, knowing the wisdom in her words, but seeing no way to implement them. They need me, was all I could offer as explanation. And who's taking care of you? She asked, her eyes kind but concerned. I had no answer. The turning point arrived with stark, undeniable clarity on a rainy Friday evening. I'd had chemotherapy that morning, a session I reached via an expensive taxi ride and endured alone. By afternoon, the side effects were in full force. Nausea, dizziness, the metallic taste in my mouth that made even water unpalatable. Yet at 5 p.m. sharp, Olivia dropped off Emma and Noah. Sorry I can't stay and chat, Mom. We've got dinner reservations at 6:30. The kids have eaten already, but Noah said he's still hungry. You might need to make him something. I stood in the doorway, gripping the frame for support, my headscarf slightly askew. Did she not see me? Really see me? Emma, help Grandma with dinner. Okay? Be good, you two. And she was gone, heels clicking down the hallway. I managed to microwave some mac and cheese for Noah. I supervised Emma's homework through a fog of nausea. But as I stood to clear the dishes, the room began to spin. The floor rushed up to meet me, and then darkness. I woke to frantic small hands patting my face. Grandma, Grandma, wake up! Emma's voice high with fear. Noah crying in the background. I'm okay, sweetie. I mumbled, though I clearly wasn't. Help me up. I called 911. Emma said, her 10-year-old voice suddenly mature, and I tried calling Mom and Dad, but they didn't answer. The paramedics arrived within minutes. As they loaded me onto a stretcher, I heard Emma on the phone again. Mom, Grandma fell down and the ambulance is here. Please come home. A pause. But we're scared. At the hospital, I drifted in and out of consciousness. Tests were run. Fluids were administered. And sometime later, I became aware of Olivia's voice, not at my bedside but in the hallway. I don't understand why they had to bring her here. She just fainted. It happens with chemo. Her tone was irritated, inconvenienced. Ma'am, your mother was severely dehydrated, and her blood pressure was dangerously low. The nurse explained patiently. She shouldn't have been caring for children in her condition. Well, what am I supposed to do? We have this dinner tonight. It's been planned for months. I'm sure you'll figure something out, the nurse replied, her tone cooling considerably. Your mother needs rest, not responsibility. I closed my eyes, hot tears leaking into my hair. In that moment, the truth I'd been avoiding crystallized with painful clarity to my daughter and son-in-law. I wasn't a person with needs of my own. I was a convenience, a free service they'd grown to expect and demand, even as I was fighting for my life. Patricia arrived an hour later, having returned early from Arizona, after Emma had somehow found her number and called her too. My friend took one look at me in the hospital bed and her face crumpled. "Oh, Maggie," she whispered, taking my hand. "Why didn't you tell me how bad things were?" "I didn't want to bother anyone," I replied weakly. "That's what they've trained you to say," she said with unexpected fierceness. "Not bothering people while they take and take from you." Her words penetrated the fog of people-pleasing that had clouded my judgment for years. "I've been watching this happen," Patricia continued. "Watching them use you as an unpaid nanny housekeeper and tutor. I've bitten my tongue, because you seem to love it so much. But this," she gestured at the hospital room, the IV in my arm. "This is too much, Maggie. It has to stop." She was right. It did have to stop, and for the first time, I felt ready to make that happen. The next morning, Dr. Chen came by on her rounds. "Mrs. Wilson, we need to talk about your home situation." I nodded, a new resolve strengthening me. "Yes, we do." Together with Patricia and Dr. Chen, I formulated a recovery plan that prioritized my health. I would need help not provided for the foreseeable future. I would need to create boundaries with Olivia and Daniel. And most importantly, I would need to recognize my own worth beyond what I could do for others. Patricia helped me make a list of local support services. Dr. Chen connected me with a cancer support group that met weekly, and I made the hardest decision of all. I would not be available for childcare during my treatment. When Olivia arrived later that day, without Daniel, who was swamped at work, I was sitting up in bed, Patricia beside me. "The kids are with my neighbor," Olivia announced without preamble. "She can only keep them until tomorrow morning, though. When are they discharging you?" "No. How are you feeling?" "No. I'm sorry we weren't there. Just logistics. I'm being kept for observation until tomorrow afternoon," I replied calmly. "And after that, I'll be going to Patricia's for a few days." Olivia frowned. "But what about the weekend? We have the Morgan's Gala on Saturday." I took a deep breath. "I won't be watching the children anymore." "Olivia, not during my treatment." The words hung in the air between us. Olivia's expression cycled rapidly from confusion to disbelief to the beginning edges of panic. "What do you mean, Mom? We rely on you for weekends. You know that—" "Yes, you've made that abundantly clear. But I'm fighting cancer." "Olivia, I nearly collapsed while caring for your children. Emma had to call 911 because neither you nor Daniel would answer your phones. We were at dinner in a nice restaurant. You can't expect us to have our phones out at Lombardo's." The restaurant name dropped like a badge of honor. I let it pass. "I nearly ended up in ICU, Olivia. I could have hit my head when I fell. Anything could have happened to me or to the children." "You're being dramatic." She scoffed, but I detected a note of uncertainty. It was just a little fainting spell. Patricia, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Your mother's oncologist has explicitly advised against childcare duties. It's medically contraindicated during her treatment." Olivia shot Patricia a look that could have frozen lava. "With all due respect, this is between my mother and me." With all due respect, I countered, finding strength I didn't know I had. "It's about my health and my life, and I've made my decision." The conversation deteriorated from there. Olivia cycled through disbelief, anger, bargaining. "What if it's just one day a week?" And finally, thinly veiled threats. "You know, if you can't help us out anymore, I don't know how often we'll be able to bring the kids to see you. We're just so busy." The manipulation that would have wounded me deeply just days ago now struck me as transparent and desperate. "That would be unfortunate," I said evenly, "for everyone involved." After Olivia left, Patricia squeezed my hand. Proud of you, Maggie. That evening, I made 3 important calls. First to my bank, where I redirected funds I'd been saving for Olivia and the grandchildren into an account for my own care and recovery. Second, to a local elder law attorney recommended by one of the nurses to update my will and advance directives. And third, to a home health aid service to arrange for assistance during the most difficult days of my treatment. While at Patricia's, I received multiple texts and calls from both Olivia and Daniel, ranging from guilt-inducing, "The kids miss you so much," to practical concerns. "We've looked into weekend sitters and the rates are outrageous," to barely concealed desperation. "Mom, we're really in a bind here." I responded to each with the same message: "I'm focusing on my health right now. I'll be in touch when I'm feeling stronger." 2 weeks passed. I returned to my apartment, now equipped with meal deliveries organized by my cancer support group and twice-weekly visits from a home health aide named Gloria Patricia, checked in daily, often bringing small treats or magazines. My strength gradually returned, though the fatigue of chemotherapy remained a constant companion. One evening, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, I found Olivia, Daniel, and the children standing there like an awkward family portrait. "Surprise," Daniel said with forced cheerfulness. "We thought you might want some company." Emma rushed forward to hug me gently, clearly briefed on my fragility. Noah followed, wrapping his arms around my waist. Despite everything, joy bloomed in my chest at the sight of them. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. As the children explored the apartment, exclaiming over the slight rearrangements I'd made to accommodate my reduced mobility, Olivia and Daniel exchanged glances. "Mom, you're looking better," Olivia offered tentatively. I nodded. "The new medication has fewer side effects, and I've been able to rest properly." Another loaded glance between them. Then Daniel cleared his throat. "So, Margaret, we've been thinking, now that you're on the mend, maybe we could start easing back into our old arrangement. Not right away, of course, but gradually." My heart sank. This wasn't a visit motivated by concern. It was a business negotiation. "We'd start with just a few hours," Olivia added quickly. "Maybe Saturday afternoons. The kids really miss you." I looked at my daughter, this accomplished physician who could diagnose rare diseases but couldn't seem to see what was right in front of her. A mother who had given everything and now had nothing left to give. "No," I said simply. Daniel blinked. "No. No. I won't be resuming childcare duties. Not during treatment and not after." Olivia's face hardened. "Mom, be reasonable." I am being reasonable. For the first time in years, I'm thinking about what's reasonable for me. "So you're just abandoning your grandchildren after all this time?" The accusation in her voice was unmistakable. "I'm not abandoning anyone I love. Emma and Noah more than I can express, but loving them doesn't mean sacrificing my health or being taken for granted." Daniel's face flushed. "Taken for granted. Do you know how many parents would kill to have the relationship you have with your grandchildren? How many kids don't even know their grandparents?" "I do know that," I acknowledged, "and I'm grateful for every moment with them, but that relationship doesn't have to come at the cost of my dignity or well-being." "This is about money, isn't it?" Olivia interjected. "You want us to pay you now?" The suggestion was so off base, it nearly made me laugh. "This isn't about money, Olivia. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging that I'm a person with needs, not just a convenience in your lives." "We respect you," she protested. "Do you? When I needed a ride to chemotherapy, just once, you told me you were too busy. When I fainted from exhaustion after treatment, you were angry about your dinner reservations being interrupted. Every weekend for 7 years, I've rearranged my life to accommodate yours, and not once did either of you stop to consider what it might be costing me." Silence fell. In the background, we could hear Emma and Noah playing in the spare bedroom where I kept toys for them. "We had no idea you felt this way." Daniel finally said, his tone suggesting I was being unreasonable rather than truthful. "That's the problem," I replied. "You never asked." The conversation went in circles after that. Olivia vacillated between defensive anger and reluctant acknowledgement. Daniel retreated into cold formality, and I maintained my position with a calmness that surprised even me. As they prepared to leave, Emma approached me. "Are you really sick, Grandma?" she asked, her young face creased with worry. I glanced at Olivia, realizing they hadn't fully explained my condition to the children. "I am sick, sweetheart, but the doctors are helping me get better." "Is that why you can't watch us anymore?" I knelt to her level, ignoring the protest from my aching body. "Right now, I need to focus on getting stronger, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see you. We can visit in different ways." She nodded solemnly. "Dad said you were being selfish, but you don't seem selfish to me." From the mouths of babes. I hugged her tightly, meeting Olivia's gaze over Emma's shoulder. Something shifted in my daughter's expression. A flicker of shame, perhaps, or realization. After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment emotionally drained, but oddly at peace. The confrontation I dreaded was over, and I was still standing. More importantly, I'd stood up for myself. The fallout was immediate and predictable. Visits with the grandchildren became scarce and tightly controlled. Mutual friends reported that Olivia and Daniel were telling a modified version of events, casting themselves as victims of an unreliable, difficult mother. But something unexpected happened too. As word spread through my former colleagues and neighbors about my condition, support materialized from unlikely places. My third-grade teaching assistant from 15 years ago organized a meal train. The barista at my local coffee shop started setting aside muffins for me on days when I could stomach food. The retired principal from my school offered rides to appointments. My cancer support group became a lifeline. There, among others fighting similar battles, I found understanding without judgment and strength in solidarity. I began writing about my experiences initially just for myself, but eventually sharing with the group. Their encouragement led me to start a blog, Boundaries and Blessings, where I chronicled my journey through cancer and the unexpected lessons it taught me about self-worth. 3 months into treatment, I received a text from Olivia that gave me pause. One of my patients mentioned reading a cancer blog. Imagine my surprise when she described the author, and I realized it was my mother. I didn't respond immediately. The next day, another message arrived. "I read some of your posts. I didn't know you felt so alone." This time I replied, "There's a lot we haven't talked about." A week later, Olivia appeared at my door alone without Daniel or the children. She looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion I recognized from looking in the mirror during my early treatment days. "Can I come in?" she asked, her usual confidence muted. I nodded, stepping aside. We sat across from each other at my small kitchen table, steam rising from the tea I'd prepared. "Your blog," she began hesitantly. "It's powerful. People at the hospital are talking about it. I hadn't expected this." "It's just my experience," I said, "nothing special." "It is special," she insisted. "You're helping people, making them feel less alone." She paused, struggling visibly with her next words. "Including me." I waited, sensing she had more to say. "I didn't want to see how sick you were," she continued, staring into her untouched tea. "It was easier to pretend you were fine, that nothing had changed, because if I acknowledged how serious it was, you'd have to face the possibility of losing me." I finished for her. She nodded, tears welling. "Like we lost Dad, and I can't." For the first time in months, I saw my daughter, not the entitled woman who had taken advantage of me, but the little girl who had wept inconsolably at her father's funeral, the young mother who had placed her newborn in my arms with such trust, the physician who faced death daily but couldn't bear to see it touch her own family. "I understand that," I said gently, "but denial doesn't make reality disappear. It just meant I had to face it alone." "I know that now," she whispered, And I'm sorry, Mom. So sorry. It wasn't a complete apology. It didn't address the years of taking me for granted. The weekend demands the disregard for my needs. But it was a start, an acknowledgement that things had been wrong and needed to change. Some of my colleagues have asked uncomfortable questions, Olivia admitted after a while, about why I'm not more involved in your care, especially since I'm a doctor. Ah, there it was. Reputation concerns, not just genuine remorse. I wasn't entirely surprised. And what do you tell them? The truth, she said, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. That I failed you, that I've been a selfish daughter. The admission stunned me. And Daniel, how does he feel about all this? Her expression tightened. We're working through things. He still thinks you could make more of an effort with the kids. Some things hadn't changed then, but perhaps some had. I'd like to see the children, I said, but on terms that work for my health. Maybe they could visit here with you, or Daniel present. No overnight stays for now. She nodded eagerly. We can do that, and maybe I could come to your next treatment, if you want company, that is. The offer, so belated but so needed, brought tears to my eyes. I'd like that. That visit marked the beginning of a slow, sometimes painful reconciliation. Olivia began accompanying me to treatments when her schedule allowed. Daniel remained distant, but no longer actively antagonistic. The children visited regularly, though always supervised. Never as a child care arrangement. My cancer journey continued its grueling course. Some days were dark, filled with pain and fear. Others brought unexpected moments of grace. A perfect sunrise glimpsed from my window, a card handmade by Noah. An insight shared in my support group that shifted my perspective. 6 months after my diagnosis, I received cautiously optimistic news. The tumors had responded well to treatment. While I wasn't out of the woods, the forest was beginning to thin. As my strength gradually returned, I made decisions that once would have seemed unthinkable. I applied for a part-time position at a local community center, teaching creative writing to seniors. I booked a long weekend trip to Cape Cod with Patricia. I joined a gentle yoga class specifically designed for cancer patients, 1 year after that fateful day in the chemotherapy room. I invited Olivia, Daniel, and the children to dinner at my apartment. I had news to share. I've been offered a position, I announced as we finished our meal. Volunteer coordinator at the cancer center where I received treatment 20 hours a week. That's wonderful, Mom, Olivia said warmly. Your blog readers will be thrilled. Grandma's famous, Emma declared proudly. Daniel, who had been polite but reserved throughout the evening, cleared his throat. Margaret, that's great news. But what about weekends? With your new job, will you still have time to help with the kids sometimes? 7 pairs of eyes turned to him. Olivia's filled with embarrassment, Emma's and Noah's with confusion, and mine with calm resolve. I'll always make time for Emma and Noah, I replied evenly, but not as a child care provider, Daniel. As their grandmother, there's a difference. He flushed but said nothing more. Later, as they prepared to leave, Olivia lingered behind. I'm proud of you, Mom, she said softly, for everything. The way you fought cancer, the boundaries you set, the woman you've become. I was always this woman, I told her. I just forgot for a while. She nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. I won't let you forget again. It wasn't a perfect resolution. Our relationship remained a work in progress, with occasional backsliding and old patterns threatening to reemerge. Daniel continued to view me primarily through the lens of what I could do for his family, rather than who I was as a person. Some fractures never fully healed. But something fundamental had shifted. I had reclaimed my life, my time, my worth. Cancer, ironically, had given me the courage to recognize that my value wasn't determined by what I could provide to others, a lesson I wish I'd learned decades earlier. Today at 65, I still have regular checkups and live with the knowledge that cancer could return. But I no longer live in fear of disease or disapproval. I volunteer 3 days a week, write for my now popular blog, and yes, spend time with my grandchildren. On my terms with mutual respect as the foundation. Sometimes Emma and Noah still visit for the occasional sleepover. We bake cookies and build forts and read stories just as before. But now when they leave, I don't collapse from exhaustion. Instead, I take time for myself, a luxury that once seemed unimaginable but now feels like the most natural thing in the world. If there's a lesson in my story, perhaps it's this. Sometimes the greatest act of love for others and yourself is simply learning to say no. And sometimes the most unexpected hardships bring the most necessary awakenings. Cancer showed me my mortality, but more importantly, it showed me how to live.